Hello everyone, good to be back after yesterday's day off. Today is 10th of November, now it's about 1 o'clock, middle of the day by Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for a day in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. And there are quite a few very significant developments and news that I like to share with you for this moment. And I will start with YouTube, by the way, because at least for this moment, as you can see, dear friends, access is restored to YouTube here in Russia on notebooks and on PCs, basically. Phones had access earlier too, but it was impossible to access YouTube with PCs, notebooks, and so on. And I don't know, is this some temporary stuff or permanent decision to restore access? If it's gonna stay this way, then I guess I will resume live streams. Let's wait and see. See. Hopefully access will remain and I'll be able to do at least a traditional Sunday community chats, live streams, and I will think about inviting guests also on the live streams, as I was doing previously. Anyways, that's been said, let's go through some news. And Russian air defense systems repelled major drone attack that was conducted by Kyiv regime with NATO assistance on number of Russian regions, including Moscow, by the way. 70 drones were intercepted this morning by air defense systems, and almost half of these drones were directed towards Moscow. 34 drones were intercepted over the Moscow region, and unfortunately, at least one person was injured as a result of fail of the drone's fragment, and the female was taken into emergency care. Also, some channels on Telegram are reporting that there were near-miss situation occurred near one of the Moscow's airports when Kyiv regime's drone almost crashed with their civilian plane, passenger plane. Although pilots of that plane managed to avoid collision, mid-air collision, and landed the plane safely. Although for a number of hours, Moscow airports were introducing some emergency measures and directing flights to other nearby airports in the Moscow region. So this was, as far as I understand, this was a major attempt of Kyiv regime to conduct large-scale terrorist attacks on Russia, including on mainly on civilian infrastructures, as they usually do, because they are all mass murderers and terrorists, right? If anybody has other opinion about Zelensky and his criminal opinions, those people should go see psychiatrists, because they need one, 100%. And of course, Western supporters of the Kyiv regime, there also are mass murderers and the terrorists. No other opinion can be respected in this regard. So, with very few exceptions, entire Western leadership is terrorists and mass murderers, 100%. Also, RIA Novosti is reporting that Russian armed forces liberated Volchonok settlement in DPR. This information was confirmed by Russian Defense Ministry. We have also RIA Novosti's report that, according to Prime Minister of Slovakia, Robert Fico, Zelensky is afraid that Trump will really try to end the conflict in Ukraine. Trump will try to end this proxy war that West is waging against Russia. That's what it is in reality. And well, according to Fico, Zelensky is scared pretty much, because who is he after this conflict will end? Nobody. He gonna hide entire his life, rest of his life. He gonna hide from, first of all, Ukrainians that will try to take him out, right? Because he will forever be associated with hundreds of thousands of killed citizens of this former republic that were sacrificed for Western geopolitical agenda, right? So I think Fitzo has a point, and in this regard, this information is confirming basically what I just said. Vzgliad is reporting that former foreign minister of this historical mistake on the name of Ukraine, Dmitry Kuleba, stated that during one of his visits in 2022, by the way, before conflict, before special military operation started, he saw in the White House a document which was prepared by Pentagon and intelligence community of US, and this document was about Ukraine, about death of Ukraine, and this is happening before special military operation has started. So of course, Pentagon, US Secret Services, they knew that they are about to provoke, they are about to start basically this proxy war against Russia. They had their calculations how this proxy war gonna end for Ukraine, and their conclusion was quite direct: Ukraine as a state gonna die. And Kuleba is saying that he saw these documents, and despite this, Zelensky and his criminal associates, including Kuleba, they went to they went to not just drag Ukraine in this proxy war and provoke basically Russia to start special military operation, but they were trying to prolong this conflict for years and years. And I remind you, dear friends, that in March, April 2022, there was agreement in place between Moscow and Kiev to end the hostilities, and that agreement was derailed also, of course, with the active involvement of the Western ruling class, but still responsibility is on the Kiev regime also, isn't it? Because formally, at least, they are in charge, and they should ignore whatever orders they were receiving from the West to save the lives of citizens of this historical mistake, right? Ukraine. But they didn't. So they knew they were sacrificing Ukraine and citizens of Ukraine. They knew it from very first day, and they did nothing. And the Western ruling class knew, of course, what they were doing, because if Kuleba is not lying, then even before special military operation started, even before Western ruling class provoked this proxy war against Russia, they had calculations, and they knew after this conflict, Ukraine as a state will die as a result of this proxy war. That's exactly what is going to happen, by the way. I believe after this conflict will end, there will be no Ukraine on political map, because this historical mistake has to be, deleted. That's what it is. Ukraine is a creation of the Bolsheviks, and this nonsense has to end, right? Western neighbors of Ukraine can reclaim their historical territories: Poland, Hungary, Romania, whatever. I don't think many people here in Russia care about those western parts of Ukraine, but rest of the territory is historically Russian land, and have to come back to Russia. That's all it is, man. And that's what will happen most likely. Yes, theoretically there is a chance that Kiev and surrounding areas will maintain quasi-statehood on a political map, as landlocked, some quasi-state, but yet again, why would Moscow agree on that? Kiev is a Russian city and should come back to Mother Russia. That's it. But before that will happen, by the way, Borrell, this so-called diplomat, top EU diplomat, went last time as a head of EU diplomacy to Kiev yesterday with additional promises that EU will never deliver. Also, TASS news agency is reporting that Prime Minister of Poland, Donald Tusk, stated that Poland will not allow third parties to get involved in this proxy war against Russia in full scale. They want to avoid basically to become part of this war openly. Let's translate at least first sentence here. So Poland will not allow itself to become more involved in the conflict in Ukraine due to the expected decline in US interest in helping Kiev. This was stated to a journalist by Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Well, it does make sense for Poland to stay out of this conflict, at least direct clash with Russia, because it will not end well for Poland, that's for sure. And this is 100%, by the way. There can be no questions about it, right? Russian armed forces will obliterate Polish army literally in weeks, by the way. And the approach of Russian forces towards NATO troops will be very different than how Russian troops are operating when they are dealing with these forcefully mobilized citizens of Ukraine on the battlefield, right? So NATO troops should not expect any mercy, by the way. They will be obliterated in weeks. And let me tell you that Russian armed forces right now are most capable ground forces that ever existed on this planet, right? Most battle experienced, battle hardened, and they're very, very capable. Hardly anyone can argue with that, right? Yes, US has a large army, plenty of weapons, and so on, but when last time US militaries really fought a high-intensity conflict? They don't know what high-intensity conflict is, right? After Vietnam, they never fought in a real battle. And I'm quite sure, by the way, you can send like 10 US brigades, let's say, in any of the sectors of the front line, and they will probably operate even poorly than Kiev regime's forces do, exactly because of lack of this battle experience of high-intensity conflict. You know, that's how it is. So let's continue anyways. RT is reporting that UK-Ukraine relations are worsening. If we believe Guardian, there was an article in Guardian with such a claim. So Ukrainian officials believe that the relationships between London and Kiev has deteriorated as the new Labour government has so far failed to deliver long-range missiles, the Guardian reported on Friday, citing anonymous sources. Well, maybe UK don't really have those long-range missiles anymore, or just a few left. And we are talking about Storm Shadow cruise missiles, by the way. Maybe UK only has like 1 or 2 dozen left. That's it. NATO member states, significant number of NATO member states quite effectively demilitarized themselves, right? UK, France, Germany. Germany sent to Kiev regime more weapons than German army has at this point, right? So, okay, if this is true, by the way, if relationships between London and Kiev are deteriorating, okay, I can live with that. That's a good news. Kommersant newspaper is reporting that deputy of the Russian foreign minister, Sergei Ryabkov, stated that Russia is open to hear whatever initiatives Washington has when it comes to Ukrainian crisis. Moscow will listen and study initiatives, if there will be any, by the way, because for now there much talk about what Trump and his administration gonna do, how they're gonna de-escalate conflict. Different rumors are circulating in media, on internet pages. Latest one, you know, is an article. Latest scenario was highlighted by Wall Street Journal, I believe, which said that Trump's team has idea to basically create a demilitarized zone to stop hostilities on the line of contact right now, and Ukraine to impose on itself moratorium to join NATO for 20 years or something. This is non-starter. I commented on this topic earlier. This is a non-starter, by the way, for several reasons, and one of them is that according to Russian constitution, by the way, Crimea, DPR, LPR, Kherson, and Zaporozhye regions are part of Russia. and no Russian leader will ever agree to freeze the conflict on the current line of contact, because obviously all Russian territories have to be liberated from this Western-controlled regime and its forces, right? All of it. And then I mean, Russian side is winning, by the way. Russia is winning this proxy war that West provoked, right? And why would Russia agree to freeze the conflict? Give it another month or two, and Kiev regime's armed forces gonna, cease to exist as a more or less capable entity, and Russian troops will liberate rest of their territory, rest of their historically Russian territory, right? From Kharkov region, at least from Kharkov region to Odessa region. So why would Moscow agree on freezing the conflict so that West will have opportunity to reorganize, rearm, and better prepare their proxies in the Kiev-controlled territory to for second round, let's say? Why would Moscow agree on that? Never. So definitely, if Trump's team is thinking about ending their hostilities, they have to come up with some workable initiatives, by the way, something that can be interested for Russia. But freezing the conflict, no, it's not serious. But anyways, as Rybkov said, Moscow is open to hear what ideas Washington might have. But same time, Moscow reiterates that to severe diplomatic ties with US. So Moscow could severe diplomatic relations with Washington if there later persists in its hostile policies towards Russia. Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Rybkov warned in an interview with the news outlet Izvestia, published on Saturday. The diplomat said that any steps the US takes that could escalate the Ukraine conflict may justify rupturing of ties. So this is also a very strong statement, isn't it? Moscow is open for meaningful talks. Moscow is open to receive initiatives, some ideas from West, from Washington, if there is a serious intention to end their hostilities. But meanwhile, Moscow is also issuing warning that if collective West or Washington will further escalate, then Moscow may just cut her diplomatic ties with US completely. And that's a possibility, and it might happen, by the way, because at least for now, we don't see any real steps from collective West towards the escalation. Exactly opposite is happening. For example, this news here, which said that Pentagon is authorizing US contractors to operate in Kiev-controlled territory, right? So let's translate this, at least first sentence, for a little more details. So the Pentagon lifted the ban on the presence of American contractors in Ukraine for the repair of weapons. They will be sent there in limited numbers, reports Reuters with a reference to a source in United States. So by the way, they are talking about, some engineers at this point. They're gonna repair equipment and stuff, but in reality, we know this is a way that Pentagon is trying to maintain plausible deniability in its hands, isn't it? Because, of course, Pentagon is heavily involved in this conflict against Russia, and they're already lost probably hundreds of its personnel that were designated as contractors or mercenaries or whatever, right? And they're probably to this new decision of Pentagon to lift this ban on operations in Ukraine by US contractors, this decision is made to basically legalize or somehow explain death of the dozens and possibly hundreds of US citizens that occur on Kiev-controlled territory. So after this decision, Washington may say, you know what, they were contractors, they knew what they were doing, they went there and they died. It's not our fault, it's their fault. It's them. It's their decision. That's what is going to happen, by the way. And for example, when it comes to further escalation with Russia, take a look at the Macron. This clown, by the way, from France, is calling Trump to further escalate with Russia and not to even think about any compromises. And as we can all understand, Trump and his team gonna be under heavy pressure from all sides, by the way, from inside the US or outside of US, because warmongers are all along the collective West, right, in high-level positions. Nothing to be said about our military-industrial complex that made hundreds of billions on this proxy war against Russia, right? And probably they want this money stream to continue. So French President Emmanuel Macron, in a conversation with US President-elect Donald Trump, urged him to seek non-real concessions from Russia on Ukraine, reports the Wall Street Journal. In a 25-minute conversation on Wednesday, Macron urged Trump to ensure that any diplomatic process with Russia over Ukraine would lead to genuine concessions from the Kremlin, according to people briefed on their phone call. Okay, I mean, this delusion of fucking idiots, man. Does Macron understand that they are losing? They are losing big time. And they, I mean, Western ruling class and their puppets in the governments of their Western states. Has Macron any real understanding what is happening on the battlefield? What concessions from Russia? Are you out of your mind? Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. And this clown, Macron, is not alone, isn't it? Trump gonna receive many calls, by the way, and many demands from dozens and dozens of these so-called high-ranking officials or influential individuals in the collective West. And you know, all of them will try to persuade Trump that if they will just a little bit further escalate with Russia, they're gonna achieve victory, you know. And I don't know, Trump may fail to this, you know. Let's hope he will not, and his team will manage to really de-escalate, because they talk about de-escalation quite a lot, but they might also, you know, they might not be able to withstand such a pressure from all around, you know. I don't know, time will tell, but Moscow was very clear, and Ryabkov, deputy of the Russian foreign minister, just reiterated that, well, Russia will respond on our next possible next level of escalation with their appropriate actions. There will be not just retaliatory strikes in terms of kinetic, but also Moscow may cut diplomatic ties with the US. And I guess if we see further escalation, diplomatic ties may be severed, not just with US, but with the number of other Western European countries, because presence of Russian embassies, Russian diplomats in these countries at this point not really makes much sense, because there are no relationships between the sides, right? Collective West, mainly, with the very few exceptions, by the way, we know Hungary's leadership has their adequate position, Slovakia, obviously also. But in general, vast majority of the collective West countries and their leadership is all about further escalating with Russia, right? They are sick with Russophobia, by the way, and they cannot help themselves. They are full of hatred, and they want this conflict to be escalated and to last as long as it takes before they will achieve these sick dreams or illusions of you know, Russia's strategical defeat or something, which will never happen. But they are sick with Russophobia. They are mentally ill, actually, poorly educated, poorly informed, imbeciles, basically, and they just cannot stop. That's all. Interfax is reporting that, well, British Prime Minister intends to further increase military spendings in UK up to 2.5% of GDP. Well, this news is gonna make Trump happy. That's for sure. because we all know that it was Trump during his first presidency that was demanding from European countries that are NATO members to increase their spendings on defense up to 2% of their GDP. And Starmer, probably in attempt to somehow improve relationships with Trump, is planning to come up with this a new idea that they're gonna increase spending up to 2.5%. Okay, Trump may demand 3%, by the way. Trump may demand that all NATO member states are spending 3% of their GDP on defense. Anyways, before I continue, dear friends, let me notice that this small media project of mine is completely subscriber funded. And if you like my channels, if you want to see further development of this project, please consider to support my work with donation through PayPal or Boosty platforms, or by subscribing to my pages on Patreon or Boosty, where I have plenty of extra content, by the way, on regular basis, not just second news updates, but also some other content about different events in Russia, about life in Russia, basically. And this is the last video that I published from Moscow on Red Square, by the way. From 7th to 10th of November, there was an open-air exhibition to commemorate the 83rd, I believe, anniversary of the legendary parade that took place on 7th of November of 1941 on Red Square, when units basically from that parade went directly to the front lines and play a crucial role, obviously, in defense of Moscow and eventually in a victory in a great patriotic war. It was an interesting exhibition, and I made a second update there. It was on 8th of November. And I also made separate videos for behind the scenes episode, and I will publish that behind the scenes episode today or tomorrow. So hopefully our communities on Patreon and Boosty will find these videos interesting. So yes, dear friends, all the links are under this video in the description box and pinned comment if you want to support. In last 3 days, I had like $3 donation, and there are many thanks to member of our community who donated $3 3 days ago. But yes, I mean, project cannot survive on if things stay this way, right? But anyways, let's continue. Rianost is reporting that Israeli minister, by the way, conducted a secret visit to Russia to negotiate basically ceasefire or peace agreement in Lebanon. Quite interesting news. Let's go through some details here. So, Israel's strategic planning minister Ron Dermer paid a secret visit to Russia last week to discuss the escalation of Israeli-Lebanese conflict. Israeli television Channel 12 reported on Sunday, citing senior officials in Israel. And by the way, I believe this information is true because on Telegram a few days ago I saw a picture of Israeli military plane in one of the Russian airports. And at the time I was thinking maybe this is like some mistake or some fake news or stuff, and therefore I did not share that photo, that information on my Telegram, because I was not sure that it's legit. And now when I read this news, I guess yes, that information, that photo of the plane, Israeli plane in one of the Russian airports, was real, and possibly this minister fly to Russia on that plane, maybe. When it comes to topic itself, it is interesting that Israel is seeking cooperation with Russia to de-escalate with Lebanon, because of course Russia is respected by Middle Eastern countries, by Lebanese leadership, Hezbollah's leadership, and Moscow may play some crucial role in the escalation. Yes, that's I can see that. I can see that, and even more than that, if Israel is serious about the escalating, Russia may even send its peacekeepers in southern Lebanon, if of course Lebanon will ask for it, right? So interesting that Israeli high-ranking official come to Russia to basically seek Russian help in the escalation. But yet again, I mean, how we know that Netanyahu's government is serious about the escalating? I don't know. Maybe they are just messing around, creating illusion that they want the escalation, but in reality they don't. Hard to tell, dear friends. RT is reporting that Iran denies plotting to kill Trump. Iran has denied US accusations that it attempted to orchestrate a plot to assassinate President-elect Donald Trump before the November elections. It has dismissed their allegations as a hoax orchestrated by pro-Israeli actors in a bid to exacerbate tensions between Washington and Tehran. And you know what, dear friends, I think position of Iran is correct, and I don't think Iran was really orchestrating any assassination of their U.S. President-elect. I just don't think this is true news, because it will, if it was the case, by the way, it will harm Iran in ways that are hardly even imaginable, right? And therefore, I don't think Iran was involved in any attempts to take out Trump or any other politician for that matter in US. But what is happening right now is that Trump, even before elections, by the way, Trump was under pressure from many sides to, you know, to escalate, to have an escalatory attitude towards Iran. Rumors were circulating that Iranians are trying to kill him, assassinate him, this and that. And unfortunately, based on what he says a couple of times about Iran's possible involvement in this whole stuff, seems like he is believing in this. And that's exactly what these groups that are creating this illusion want. They want Washington to basically further escalate in the Middle East with Iran, because Western ruling class wants regional war there to shut down navigation through Persian Gulf and Hormuz Strait, so that China will be cut off from Middle Eastern energy sources. That's what all this stuff is about. And unfortunately, Trump is failing for this trap, because it seems like he is believing in this nonsense that, well, Iranians try to kill him. Come on, man. Are you really believing this nonsense? What the hell? Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. This is pure propaganda, by the way. This is pure example of how false narratives are created by Western propaganda outlets and Western ruling so-called class and elites. They are coming up with some total BS and then pushing this through propaganda means, and are creating this false reality in which things are completely out of touch with their real life, right? And then people are living in that false bubble, false reality, some even forever, and are never able to really come to their senses and to reality. Kommersant newspaper is reporting, dear friends, that Qatar, under pressure of US, demanded from leaders of Hamas to flee the country. And also Qatar is stating that it will no longer act as a mediator in negotiations between Israeli and Palestinian sides on the Gaza Strip issue, which is well, of course, if mediators even are no longer seeing meaningful their presence in the process of negotiations, then I think situation is really declining big time, and ceasefire, real ceasefire, and the end of hostilities are definitely not even on the horizon. Quite unfortunate, but that's the reality there. Who gonna replace Qatar, by the way, when it comes to playing this role of mediator? I don't know. United Arab Emirates may try, Saudi Arabia may try, even Turkey, but will it work? I mean, it all depends on real plans that Netanyahu's government has. If they don't want to de-escalate, then no matter who will mediate, those talks will lead to nowhere, right? And same can be said about leadership of Hamas. If they don't want to de-escalate, in reality, then I mean they can talk forever, but that will lead to nowhere. Interfax is reporting that Russia allocated $62 million for Cuba for emergency support due to issues that Cuba is facing because of the recent hurricane, and also there are some energy crisis. There are 60 million will be spent there to buy 80,000 tons of diesel, which will be helpful. And I hope BRICS member states, all of them, will provide as much assistance as they can to Cuba, because people in Cuba are sick and tired of this illegal embargo that is imposed by US on this island nation, and it should not be that way, by the way. People have done nothing wrong and should not suffer just because Washington dislikes government of Cuba. I mean, this is wrong. So hopefully BRICS member states will help out Cuba to overcome all their issues that country is facing through these illegal Western sanctions, US embargo, first of all. Vzglyad newspaper is also reporting that Audi, German car manufacturer, is cutting 4.5 thousand jobs in Germany. Well, after Volkswagen announced that they're gonna cut some tens of thousands of jobs, now Audi is doing their same. German industry is, by the way, is in big trouble. The industrialization of the Germany is accelerating in a manner that we have not seen in recent history, and this is all because of the crazy policies of German government, right? One of the keystones for success of German economy was relatively cheap energy that this economy was based on, right? And German production was able to compete on the world market because of this energy cost was relatively low. And German leadership did everything basically to destroy relationships with Russia, to destroy relationships with Russian energy companies. And that's a result. German companies no longer are able to compete on the world market. There is a huge decline in car sales, in sales basically of German goods on European markets, on the world markets. And there are many factories, many companies are just shutting down or moving their production to other parts of this world, quite often into US, because you might be surprised, dear friends, but in certain states in US, energy costs like 3 to 5 times less than in Germany. Can you imagine that? So yes, maybe after, maybe German people will wake up one day, majority, and will say that, you know what, something is wrong here. We cannot allow our country to be destroyed, and therefore maybe they will choose some proper, adequate people to run Germany. And in that case, of course, Berlin will then try to somehow rebuild relationships with Russia, but it's not going to be easy, by the way, because of the absence of any trust towards Western ruling class. To rebuild relationships with Russia is not going to be easy for any Western country, with few exceptions, by the way, with few exceptions. Hungary, namely, Hungary and Slovakia, of course. And by the way, of course, Serbia is geographically is middle of the Europe, by the way. It's not a member of NATO or EU, but geographically is, of course, European state. And Serbia always will be seen by Russia as a friendly country. Serbians are our brothers, by the way, so brothers and sisters. So this will never change. But German people have to wake up, man. They have to. RT is reporting that over 40 African ministers are meeting in Russia. So, inaugural ministerial conference of the Russia-Africa Partnership Forum will convene this weekend in Sochi. So there was yesterday, first day of work, I believe, marking the new regular dialogue format following Russian-African Summit, hosted on their Syria's federal territory and announced by the Roscongress Foundation. The event on November 9th to 10 will feature more than 40 ministers from across Africa. Roscongress statement, cited by TASS, confirmed that 1,500 participants are expected, including ministers of foreign affairs, economy, healthcare, digital development, and education from countries such as Algeria, Angola, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Uganda, and many others. And this is great, by the way. This is great. Relationships between Russia and African nations are improving very rapidly, and I believe African states have a huger success in front of them. Just give it another 10, 20, 30 years, and many countries, I mean, Africa has such potential, by the way, African nations, right? And I believe African continent is going to be next big driver when it comes to world economies grow, you know. So when I see news like that relationships between Moscow and between Russia and the African nations are getting better and better all the time, it does makes me happy, by the way. This is great news. And this cooperation will be success for both sides, obviously, for all sides. TASS news agency is reporting that EU is preparing yet another packet of sanctions on Russia, 15th, by the way, this time. And the EU bureaucracy will try to come up with mechanisms now to somehow add additional pressure on Russian energy sector and stuff. And I don't know, these guys are unable to learn, isn't it? They are just, in principle, unable to learn. I mean, these sick Russophobes, by the way, that are formally in charge of EU, isn't it? They just cannot learn, by the way. They had already 14 packages of these sanctions. They sanctioned, I don't know, just about everything in Russia, right? And what they achieve? They are quite effectively deindustrializing European economies, right? They are destroying European economies with these sanctions, and they are, you know, they want to continue. They want to continue, man. It's really imbeciles, man. So soon, 15th package of sanctions to be imposed on Russia. I mean, they are laughing stock, by the way. These Western bureaucrats, European bureaucrats, by the way, in Brussels and they're in governments of few member states, in many governments. They are just a laughing stock, isn't it? How anybody can take them seriously, man, I don't know. Anyways, let's continue with some more news about their economies. So, 2050, by the way, Russian share on a coal market on the world will reach 25 to 30%, which is well, quite impressive number, by the way, right? And coal is not going nowhere. If you listen to some statements of Greens and people that are associated with them, you know, in a couple of years' time, all world's economy gonna go green and you know, wind, solar, and this and that. But in reality, coal, oil, gas are not going nowhere, by the way. And of course, Russia is big on these markets, right? So Russian energy strategy until 2050 aims to increase their share of the Russian exports in international coal trade from 14.5% in 2023 to 15 to 23% in 2036, and from 25 to 30% by 2050. This follows from the revised energy strategy 2050 available to us, according to news agency document was sent to the Russian government. So quite ambitious plans and achievable one, I believe. And when it comes to Russian energy exports, this is also interesting news that for 2030, Russia plans to increase its oil output up to 540 million tons. 540 million tons, which is also quite a impressive number, isn't it? So let's translate this news. The volume of oil production in Russia may grow from 531 million tons in 2023 to 540 million tons 5 years in 5 years before 2030, and remain at this level until 2050. So this is this information is also comes from this document that TASS News obtained about revised energy strategy of Russia for 2050. So, well, Russia is a big, obviously, when it comes to energy exports, coal, gas, oil, and it's gonna stay this way, by the way, for decades and decades and decades to come. And meanwhile, by the way, even though Russia is big on energy markets, I believe as time goes by, other sectors of the Russian economy will play much more important role than energy sectors when it comes to income that Russia is generating with its exports, right, on internal and outside markets. And I believe, for example, IT technologies from Russia will be big success, IT companies. Also, of course, agricultural sector, by the way. I mean, Russia has immense potential, obviously. Russia is already very big when it comes to export of their agricultural producer, but Russia gonna get even bigger. And at one point, just give it another like 15-20 years, Russia probably will be biggest food producer for this for humanity. Basically, that's how it's gonna be. And many other sectors, by the way, are doing also quite okay. So share of energy will decline, even though Russia will make huge profits by staying big on oil markets, on energy markets. Share of energy sector in overall Russian income will little by little decrease, because other sectors will overtake, right? Other sectors will grow even bigger. So in any ways, this is it, dear friends, for today's update. EU bureaucracy may come up with 15th, 16th, 120th packet of sanctions against Russia. Meanwhile, we just do what is necessary to to defend ourselves, to defend our country, our interests, and our economy is doing quite okay, by the way, quite well. It seems like more sanctions are imposed on Russia, better Russian economy is doing. So, they should feel free to continue with this ladder of constant sanctions. By the way, they are actually helping us in some weird ways. Anyways, dear friends, let's end this update on that term. Hopefully you will find it informative, interesting, and useful. And if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary. This is the only way, dear friends, we can at least try to influence the algorithm, which, as you know, is quite aggressive towards my channel and towards all channels, by the way, from Russia, especially ones that are operating in this segment of news and political commentary. And I am working in this segment, right? So yes, if you can, please click that like button, leave some commentary, share information about my channel with your friends on internet or in real life. And if you like my work, if you want to support, you can do it, as I already mentioned, through PayPal platform, Boosty platform, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. All the links under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Have a wonderful weekend, dear friends. Take care.